how do you get your employees to take ownership? That's a question that vexes a lot of customer service leaders and a lot of business owners. And I have someone with me today who's got a really good answer to that question. She's Randi Busse. She is president of the Workforce Development Group, and she's co-author of Turning Rants into Raves, which is an awesome book on this very topic. And she's also a fantastic customer service speaker and someone who I personally recommend. So I think we got a lot to cover today, Randi. I want to start by asking you, who are Rant and Rave?
Oh, well, you actually know them, Jeff, and you know them because they take care of you when you are the customer of just about every business that you do business with. And so Rant and Rave are two fictitious employees who work in every organization. They range from a frontline person to somebody in accounting to somebody in the warehouse. Rant is the employee who's just there for a paycheck, doesn't really care if the customer is happy or not. Oh, look, it's 5 o'clock. I have to go now. Whereas Rave, same position, same pay, happy to be there, engaged, committed, and what I like to call thinking and acting like an owner of the business.
Now, I know when I've seen you speak, sometimes you actually bring like life-size posters, pretty big posters of Rant and Rave.
I do. And so in lieu of the life-size posters, I can show you the business card size Rant and Rave. And you can tell looking at Rant, she's the one with the pink jacket. She's got her arms folded across her chest, kind of like, what do you want? You're bothering me. Whereas Rave has open body language. She's smiling. And she's just anxious to help you. So this is the miniature version, but yes, they do come in full 6-foot-high banners. So thanks for asking.
Well, I love the visualization, and you know, one thing that immediately comes to mind is, do rants and raves come to our businesses this way? In other words, did we accidentally hire wrong? Or are we somehow creating them because of the way that we're running our business or leading our people? Or is it both?
Yes and yes. And so sometimes employees or prospective employees show up on interviews and they show up as Rave. And they have all the right answers and they're smiling and making eye contact, and you get a good vibe from them. And as they join our organization, they sometimes turn into Rant. Now, it could be they're turning into Rant because they always were Rant, but they just put on their game face, if you will, for the interview. But it also could be that they turn into Rant because the leaders of the organization create an environment that does not inspire them to be Rave. So it can happen either way. However, the good news is, Jeff, is that no matter how a rant is created, 9.5 times out of 10, we can convert that rant into a rave.
And so if you have rants on your team, what are some of those things that a business owners can do to turn that person or encourage them to be more of a rave?
Sure. So the first thing they need to do, Jeff, is they need to look at themselves in the mirror, and they need to reflect on how they are acting, how they are treating the employee. Because if you're a leader and you're micromanaging, or you're yelling at your employees, or you're not giving them the information and the tools they need to do their job and delight customers, well, that is a part of the problem, and you're part of the problem. And so I'm sure you've heard me say, and you might say it yourself, the fish stinks from the head down. And so a leader is sometimes, let me stop for a second. A leader is sometimes Rant. And if the leader is Rant, it goes without saying that the employees are going to be Rant also. So the most important thing is to step back, look at yourself in the mirror and say, how am I showing up? How am I treating my employees? And not only that, how am I treating my customers in front of my employees? Because if you as a leader get upset and either, talk down to a customer, or even hang up a phone or walk away from a customer interaction, and you're talking trash about the customer in front of your employee, well, you're kind of saying, hey, customers aren't important, and we don't really care about them. And so, do as I say, but not as I do. I'm not really sure. It's like mixed messages that we're giving to our employees.
I'm laughing because I've heard managers say things like, "You be nice to our customers, or else." It's like, whoa, I don't know if that's the message you're trying to get across. Like, would you be
Exactly.
nice to our customers, perhaps?
Yeah. And it starts with, are you being nice to your employees?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, why would they even want to be nice to the customers?
All right. So we've got to start. We lead by example, both in how we treat our employees, but also how we demonstrate what a rave looks like, perhaps, to our customers. Are
Correct.
there other things that businesses can be doing to promote and encourage more of that rave-like behavior?
Yes. Well, so acknowledging rave behavior is really important. And, probably like you, I'm a fan of giving positive, specific feedback. So if I say to an employee, hey, great job, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. But if I say, hey, great job, making that customer feel comfortable and really being patient and listening to them, it's positive, it's specific, and it could be repeated. And so, we're all looking for the pat on the back, right? And so if I get a pat on the back from my boss because I was patient and understanding, well, then I'm going to be inclined to do that again in the future. So it's important that we acknowledge the good behavior specifically. And it's also important that for the employees that are acting more like rant, that we actually hold them accountable. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening as often as it should in businesses. So when we tolerate rant behavior, whether it's coming in late, talking rudely to a customer, not following up when they say they're going to, the message that we're giving to that rant employee is it's okay for you not to do what I'm asking you to do and what I'm paying you to do. And even worse than that, the message that we're giving to all the other employees is it doesn't matter if you do or don't do because you're not going to get in trouble. And so accountability again starts at the top. And if we're not holding our employees accountable, then we can't expect to get the kind of behavior from them that we actually want.
It almost sounds like it's a fine line for a manager. So on one hand, if I'm too harsh and too much of a stickler with the rules, then I'm not having a positive dialogue with my employees. On the other hand, if I'm completely hands off, then I'm allowing them to kind of get away with anything, maybe develop these really bad habits. If I'm a leader, how do I find that happy medium between being the right amount of accountable, but not being too negative? In other words, how do I find that middle ground where I'm being positive, but I'm still saying you got to work in a certain way?
Right. Well, that's a great question. And, you'd have to pay me a lot of money to get the answer to that question. No, I'm only kidding. So I think that it comes with, number one, trusting your employees. Because as a leader, if you don't trust your employees, you're probably going to micromanage them. You're going to hover. We need to trust our employees, and then we need to empower them to make decisions as if they were the owner of the company. So, years ago, many years ago, I'm dating myself, people wore bracelets that said WWJD. Do you remember those? Did they have those in your neck of the woods, Jeff?
I,
And it's not what you think, right? Do you know what bracelet I'm talking about?
I think so, but maybe you should tell me just in case I'm off.
Okay, so years ago, if you were wearing a bracelet that said WWJD, it stood for what would Jesus do? Not what would Jeff do, right?
That's what I thought it might be, and that's where I got confused.
But this is not a religious statement at all. But when you were wearing that bracelet, it made you think about, is this the right thing to do? Am I acting appropriately? And so I want leaders to buy bracelets for their employees. So if the leader's name is Mike, I want your bracelet to say WWMD. What would Mike do? How would Mike handle this situation if he were the one that was dealing with the customer? So we can share with our employees, if a customer says this, you do that. If this happens, you handle it like this. But we can go through every scenario that ever existed And tomorrow a new situation comes up and the employee says, well, I don't know how to handle it. They didn't tell me what to do. But so if we're thinking, what would Mike do? How would Mike handle this situation as the owner of the organization who wants to retain the customer, who wants to delight the customer? Well, chances are, if we follow that philosophy, we're going to do the right thing. Now, having said that, Mike, the owner, is not going to give away free products and services for life to a customer. That's not good business sense. So the premise is, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. So is the $5 credit that you're not giving the customer really worth losing a customer? We have to make decisions that are in the best interest of the company, of the customer, and ultimately us as customer service representatives who want to continue working for this organization, right? My future employment with your company is predicated upon how well we all service the customers.
I think you raise an issue that is probably overlooked, doesn't get enough time. And that is, if I'm the business owner, Mike, and I have somewhere an inkling of how I want my customers to be served, I'm willing to bet in most businesses, big and small, that message has not been shared with employees. What does great service look like?
Mhm.
What should you do versus what you should not do?
Mhm.
There's different names for it. I call it a customer service vision, but that shared definition of outstanding service. I talk to a lot of business leaders. Most of them either don't have one or are pretty confident their employees don't know what it is. And so I think you've hit on something very important. Even before you hand out the bracelets, maybe articulate, if I'm Mike and I'm the business owner, what exactly is the service philosophy, and then sharing that with employees so they understand it as well.
Well, and you and I both know that a lot of companies, when they hire somebody, if they have, X number of years of customer service experience, we think that they know what a definition of customer service is, how we treat customers here. And we're doing a disservice to our company, to our employees, and ultimately to our customers by not taking the time to educate our employees about what good customer service looks like. And that's where you and I come in.
Have you encountered this phenomenon? And I ask this because I have. When I talk to leaders in customer focused organizations, they often will tell me that they hire people with experience in the industry who are surprised that that's how they do business. In other words, they have these bad habits that is part of their experience. And even good hires, it takes them a while to really buy in and learn that. Have you encountered that as well?
Absolutely. And what I also find, Jeff, is that some leaders are having new employees sit with existing employees that have some bad habits or have that rant attitude that we were talking about earlier, who could be trashing the customer, trashing the company, complaining about every little thing. And now you're exposing a brand new employee to this negative Nelly, and that's not good either. So there's opportunity and work to be done, and it's also not brain surgery, as
Right.
we know.
Well, and I know a lot of leaders are hiring someone is a stressful time because they feel I don't have a lot of time because I'm down a person, and now I'm supposed to train this person, and they end up not investing enough time. They Mike hands off that new employee to negative Nelly, and pretty soon they're like, well, I don't have time. You deal with them, and then that
Yeah.
from day one, what you said earlier, being the model, that's not being the model, and then entrusting the wrong person who's also not the model. Kind of what do you expect at that time?
We're
But if I'm empathizing with that busy leader, it's difficult to find the time. How do you get the leader to say, you know what, I don't have time, but I have to spend that time anyways up front
Yeah.
onboarding this new employee the right way?
Well, interesting you asked that question, because some of my clients are actually retaining my services to not only find those employees, right? So I'm interviewing them, and I'm then, once we decide on a hire, I'm training them. So you're delegating that to me, who is an expert on the difference between rant and rave, and who's just walking the talk and who's not. And then I'm giving them the skills they need to delight the customer, because we know that leaders are very busy and they don't have the time, but that's not an excuse that you can use, because you're setting everyone up for failure if you're just, throwing them with the wrong person or not giving them the proper onboarding. And so when we talk about how we're treating external customers, the employee experience is just as important. So if a new person comes onto your team and we don't invest in them to show them how we like things to be done and set them up for success, well, then shame on us.
You touched on hiring again. I want to come back to that because we started our conversation. Do they come to us this way? Are we creating our rants? What are some things that you would suggest for a business that's hiring people to screen out those rants and maybe do a better job of identifying someone who's likely to be a rave?
Yeah. One of the things that I do when I'm screening candidates is I have them call me and leave me a message. Now they don't know they're leaving me a message. I say, give me a call at this phone number. And so I just got a message I guess it was Friday, from an employee who, gets on the phone and says, "Hey, Randy, this is so-and-so, and you called me about a job." And, if that's the way that he's calling me, who is the prospective employer, there's a good chance that he's going to be way too casual with with one of our customers. So I like to have them call me and leave me a message, because that's often a part of the customer service job, is to leave messages. I also like to call them and see how they respond when I call them, because a lot of times they're very unprofessional as they're answering the telephone. So I kind of want to catch them in their natural environment, if you will, to get an idea of when they're not on their best behavior, how is it that they're actually responding. You've heard this 100 times, I'm sure: hire for attitude, train for skill. And so just because somebody has 15 years experience in customer service doesn't mean that they've been providing good customer service. So I'd rather take somebody who has a good heart, who is interested, who is genuine, who is friendly, who I can have a connection with, and teach them the business. I can teach them about the products and the services, but I can't teach them nice. I can't teach them how to care. So I think we need to stop screening people from resumes that really have no meaning. They don't carry any meaning. Have a conversation, connect with the prospective employee, and take it from there. Are they making eye contact? Are they leaning in? Are they twiddling their thumbs? That interaction is really what's going to be more telling than how many years experience they have doing something.
I think we need to throw the years of experience bit out, because what you're saying really is, let's identify the skills that we need and the characteristics, and then let's find a way to screen for those.
Yes.
And the phone example is a great one, because what I would counter is to say is, maybe in my business, I want people who are able to build that casual rapport. And so that casual message is perfect. But in another business, maybe that doesn't work at all. And so someone whose kind of natural style is to be too casual for my business, I'd love to know that up front. And knowing, having a sense of who I really want and what makes them successful, and then doing those screening processes makes sense.
Yeah.
I know we have time for really just one more question. I want to make sure I ask you this. What is your best advice for business owners that want to encourage a culture of ownership? And as an example, if I'm the business owner and I've asked a trusted employee maybe to help train a new hire, I want to be able to know that employee is also going to act like an owner, and not just the boss to employee relationship, but the peer-to-peer relationship. How do you encourage that culture of ownership in an organization?
Yeah, so it's not something that you can do on a dime. It takes time. Certainly, people like you and I are resources to organizations. But if you're talking about how do you do it on your own, it's really to, treat your employees as if they are your best customers. It's about talking with them instead of to them. It's about, being that example that I talked about. And it's really about talking about, what it is that we offer, why customers come to us, and reminding our employees that most of us are in a commoditized business, and they can get the product or the service that we offer from, 100 or more other people. What is it that's going to make us stand apart? We're problem solvers. And so you've got to have people that want to help. And if we can find those people, we can kind of mold them into what it is that we need them to do in terms of representing our company.
So, Randi, if people want to track you down, or more importantly, if they want to get a copy of your book, which I highly recommend, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
Well, thank you. The book is actually available on Amazon.com, and they can certainly call me on 631-598-5598. The name of the company is Workforce Development Group, and the website is workdevgroup.com. And I'd love to be a resource, answer any questions, and help you turn your rants into raves.
Randi, that's bold. You shared your phone number. If you're watching this or listening to this, I dare you to give her a call and ask for help. I bet you're going to get some great advice. Randi, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Always great to chat with you, Jeff.